Hi, first grade. This week we have been learning how to compose and decompose numbers up to 120. Let's review what we learned this week. We first learned how to compose numbers. We learned that composing numbers means that we are putting parts together to make or build the total amount. For example, we thought about bulldozers. Construction workers use bulldozers to push rocks and sand, soil together when they're building a road. When we are composing numbers, we are like bulldozers. We are pushing multiple parts of a number together to build the total amount of it. Let's look at one example that we worked with earlier this week with composing numbers. We see this amount and it's broken up into place value. We see tens place and a ones place. We need to take these two pieces and put them together to compose the number in standard form. So we know that there are 1, 2, 3 tens and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ones. The number 35 is composed of 3 tens and 5 ones. We put the tens place and the ones place of this number together to compose it into standard form. Let's look at another example, and I'm going to need your help on this next one. Here we see another amount that is broken up into tens places and ones places. How many tens blocks do you see in this representation? Let's count together. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 tens, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 ones. We took those place values and we put them together to make a number. This amount is 84, and 84 is composed or made up of 8 tens and 4 ones. Great job. Let's do one more. This time I want you to do it by yourself. Here's one more representation of a number that's broken up into place value. How many place values do you see with this number? That's right, there's 3. There's a hundreds, a tens, and a ones place. Great job. Now we need to put these amounts into their placeholder on our lines. So first, how many hundreds blocks do you see? That's right, just 1. So there's a 1 in the hundreds. How many tens blocks do you see? Great job. There's a 1 in the tens, and how many ones blocks do you see? Great. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you should have a 1 in the hundreds, a 1 in the tens, and a 6 in the ones. What number does this make? We composed this amount into standard form number, and it makes the number, that's right, 116. Now 116 is composed of 1 hundreds, 1 tens, and 6 ones. Great job composing numbers. This week, we also learned how to decompose numbers. We learned that decomposing numbers means that we are breaking a number up into smaller parts. So we are thinking for our visual for decompose of a saw. This tool is used to break or cut a piece of wood into more than one piece. We can decompose numbers just like when people use a saw to cut wood. We start with one piece of wood or one number, and we cut it and break it up into smaller parts. Let's look at an example of decomposing a number that we worked with earlier this week. I have the number 35, and I have 35 shown in base 10 blocks in the middle. 10, 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We learned that we can break the number 35 up into so many different ways. But one way that we decided earlier this week was we can decompose it by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I took this one amount of 35 and I broke it into smaller pieces. I took 5 away each time, and I ended up with 7 groups of 5. We can decompose numbers into smaller pieces. We can also decompose numbers that are in standard form. The last example was in base 10 blocks, but this number, 80, is in standard form, and we can still decompose or break it into smaller pieces. Looking at the number 80, I know that I can decompose this number into groups of 10 because it's a multiple of 10. So I can break it up into pieces, groups of 10. Watch this. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So now I have groups of 10, but it still equals 80. It's the same amount. It's just broken up. I can also do it in another way. I'm thinking that I can decompose the number 80 into groups of 20. 20, 40, 60, 80. I still have 80 total, but I broke it up into groups of 20. I decomposed it. Can you think of another way that we can decompose or break up the number 80? Well, I know I can break it up into groups of 1. I can make 80 groups of 1. It would just take a long time. Is there another way we could decompose 80? Ooh, I know we like to practice skip counting by 5s. Could we decompose the number 80 into groups of 5? Yeah, we can. Great job. Now, I'm going to show you a completed either composed or decomposed number, and I want you to think in your brain, was I bulldozing that number and taking smaller parts to make a total amount and compose it, or was I using a saw and cutting a number into smaller parts? Let's look at the first example. You'll see this amount right here. Are we composing, or did they decompose this number? I see an amount in base 10, and then I see the number in digits. And they used place value. It says 116 is blank, either composed or decomposed, of 100s, 110s, and 6 ones. Give me a thumbs up if you think that this is composed. Give me a thumbs sideways if you think that this is decomposed. If you said composed, you were right. They took a small chunk of multiple different place values, hundreds and ones, and they turned it into standard form. They pushed all these smaller pieces together and made a total number. Let's look at the next example. Do you think that they composed or decomposed the number 100 in this example? It says at the bottom, I can blank 100 into groups of 10. Ooh, I know that either compose or decompose one of those, you take a big number and you chunk it into smaller pieces. Which one was that though? It's decompose, you're right. When you decompose a number, you take a big amount and you break it into smaller pieces. Over here, they broke it into groups of 10. And on the other side, they decomposed 100 into groups of 20. You might recognize this from your homework yesterday. You were to think of at least 2 ways that you could decompose the number 100. Were any of these your ways that you chose to do? If not, you might have had a different way. Remember, there are so many different ways that we can decompose numbers. I am super proud of you guys for working so hard this week on composing and decomposing numbers. This is not a super easy thing to do. You guys have been so great and working so hard. Today, for your share, you are going to be showing what you have learned this week about decomposing and composing numbers. I can't wait to see all that you've learned this week. Have fun!